Okay, hold on 1 second. That was a misstep. All right, here we go. Here we go. Okay, let's go back to that ayah for just a moment. Let's go faster than that. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. Now, look at this very carefully. And we'll stick to the transliteration. And I'm going to go word for word now. Huwa, he, alladhi is the one. That means the specific one. Anzala, who sent down one time, Anzala, alayka, upon you, and you can add as a responsibility, as an obligation, al-kitab, they translate that as the book. It means much more than that. Minhu, from it, who is masculine, so the book is masculine. Who is masculine gender, or conceptually masculine, and it's referring to the kitab. From the kitab are ayatun muhkamatun. Now, both of these words, ayat and muhkamat, carry what's called a feminine T. It's called ta marbuta for your notes. So that makes ayat and muhkamat both feminine ideas. So the ayat of the Quran, both layers or levels of the ayat are feminine in gender. They're masculine conceptually that have been feminized by the feminine T. I hope that's not too much for you. Hunna, that's feminine plural. They are ummu, mother, al-kitab, mother of the book or the mother book. Now listen very carefully. Wa ukharu, meaning and that which came after it. This is from the same root as akhirah, which means to come after a thing, not after you die, after anything. There's the ula, the beginning of it, and then there's the akhirah, which is the latter portion of a thing. So, and ukharu, after it, which they don't have here in the translation, just double check, right? They are the foundation of the book. It just says others. That's how they're translating ukharu. Others. No, it means that which came afterward. Or mutashabihatun. That means you have to grow into the understanding of these connections in the logic of the abstract ideas. You have to grow into the knowledge of that. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ. Now here we go. مَا تَشَابَهَ. Now, look at this carefully. It says that in their hearts, in the qalb or the qulubihim, their hearts is what's called zaygun. That's the disease that's spoken of. They call it perversity here. They say in their hearts is perversity, or in their hearts is a disease called a zaygun. There's a lot to be said about the letters that form that word that would give you an exact spot-on meaning for what Allah is speaking to. From the Zay or the Za letter to the Rain letter. I'll give it to you quick. Za, as an Arabic letter, means that which operates outside of the circle. There are ways of operating within a circle, and then there are those who choose to operate outside of the circle, and that can be good or bad. In other words, you might see yourself as being able to afford giving away X% of your annual income. If you do more than that, that's operating outside of your normal circle. That's why it's called the zakah. You see, that's zakah. That's what accounts for the purity, because you're going over and above the call of duty to assist other people. Zakah. So wherever you find Z, even in English, you're going to find something operating outside of the circle. If I call you crazy, you know that's not normal behavior. If I say he's zany, that's not normal behavior. The Z always means outside of the accepted circle of behavior, of thinking, of activity, whatever. So Zegun, Run, Rain, or Ra is a letter that means obstruction in the vision. The vision is Ain, that means your eye, your insight. Rain is when there's an obstruction in that Ain, Rain. So what is this saying? That those people who operate outside of the accepted boundaries, and because they're operating in that fashion, they also are people who cause their own selves to become blind to what Allah is asking of them, to what society is demanding of them. That's the disease this is talking about. Zaygun, that's the disease. Fayattabi'una, they follow what tashabaha. Now listen to this carefully. This word tashabaha is not the word mutashabihat. Mutashabihat has the feminine T. Tab marbuta. Go ask your Arabic teachers about it. But tashabaha has no feminization. Therefore, tashabaha is masculine. Listen to this carefully. Allah refers to the verses of the Qur'an, the ayat of the Qur'an, by feminine words, although the book is masculine. Who? So it's a masculine book containing feminine verses. Can you picture that? A masculine book, meaning that the masculine part of the book is what is protecting the book. The kitab is the protector over its ayat. So if you want to manipulate the feminine ayat, you're going to have to first get through the masculine al-kitab. Like if I want to manipulate the women in your house, don't I have to get through Big Bro or Big Daddy, or somebody's at the door? If I can just walk in and start manipulating your wife and your daughters, that's a problem. So tashabaha is not referring to the mutashabihat, is my point. Bring it to your resident Arabic teachers, please. They would love this. It's not speaking to the same phenomenon. So what is this speaking to? Now, listen to this very carefully, especially if you're Muslims who study other scriptures like the Torah or the Injil, as they call them, the Old Testament, the New Testament, Vedic scriptures, any scripture that has been produced prior to the Quran. That's what this word is referring to. Those have diseases in their hearts who follow the tashabaha. Those are verses from previous scriptures. So what is Allah saying? If you call yourself a Muslim and you say that the Quran is your book, why are you following Jesus? Why, in other words, why are you accepting Muhammad as a Jesus Christ type? That's not your book. Why are you accepting partners besides the source creator? That's not from your book. That might be Ahura Mazda and them with the, and gods with the 6 arms and all of that, and 4 arms, and that might be that. Why are you bringing that and inculcating that into the purity of the Tawheed established by the Quran? That's what this is saying. Why are you following your own whims, your own ideas without substantial knowledge? Why are you not really studying? You're guessing off the top of your head about what Allah is saying? That's not what Muslims do who have the Quran. That's what people of prior scriptures have been trained to do. So this tashabaha is speaking to previous religions, and I can prove that at another time from other ayat of the Quran that speak about this word tashabaha. It's not speaking about the mutashabihat of the Quran, because the muhkamat and the mutashabihat of the Quran are exactly the same. They're just 2 different layers. As I pointed out, the differences would be the form and the function. That's what muhkamat is. It's the form. And mutashabiha from shubha, represents the functionality. Those two things are, can you imagine your form not operating alongside how your body functions? You'd be a mummy. And you definitely can't have a functionality purpose if you don't have form. You'd be a ghost or something, knocking stuff around. Who's that? Start falling over your house. Oh, there's a function going on here. Function at the junction, but I don't see any forms. You understand? All right. So it's not, that's why I said that this translation is thoroughly written with miscalculations in terms of what it's speaking to. And these people are going into previous scriptures, searching for its hidden meanings, its esotericism. But no one knows its hidden meanings. It's the awil, the origin of that language, whether it's from ancient Egypt, on the walls of ancient Egypt, or whether it's some other source. No one knows the origin of those sources. Only Allah knows it. And those who he has shared it with, from the prophets, the seers, those who have special positions, and those who study on the level where they're reconnecting with the Fitrah, they're going to understand what those previous books are speaking to. But if you dedicate yourself to those scriptures and you don't spend sufficient time combing through the Qur'an, yatadabbaruing the Qur'an, delving deeply and pondering deeply the messages of the Qur'an, then what are you truly believing in or having faith in? So that's what's being spoken to also, without taking that any further. There's a lot more to be said about that, but we won't do that right now. So let me go back to the chat and see what else is there. Thank you, Habiba, for putting Imam Ronald B. Shahid's name in. Michael Hameen is giving us the website, www.thoughtsforsearchers.com. All right. And hold on. Zaid is asking or saying, object also means to deny, as in I object to that. Objectivize means to place before the mind as an object. Totally correct. As of we, when we say I or me, we are referring to the sum of our parts, which are our senses, our heart intelligence, as well as parts of our body. That's the we on the human level. That's correct. That's correct. So these are thoughts for searchers that we're sharing. Also, Kareem Abdul Salam is giving us the direct telephone number to Ronald B. Shahid. Make sure you take it down. It's 414-349-2278. Now, if we have any distributors of Ronald B. Shahid's books with us, then rightfully so, we should go through those of us who are making a few dollars off of promoting his materials. No problem with that. We're entrepreneurs also. So if Michael Shahid or if Kareem Abdul Salam, I believe hearing that he was a distributor for these books, then you need to get in touch with these people. If you are distributors, then put your name and number in the chat box also, so that we can have that and shortcut it, because you can order these books and have them in the next 2 to 3 days, actually. That's how I got mine. Okay, so make sure that you share that with the group also. Let me see if I missed anything here, and we'll be ready to conclude. Ahmed Hassan says that a famous DC radio personality said on the air on the day Imam W.D. Muhammad passed, he said, quote, "A giant oak tree has just fallen in the forest without a sound," end quote. That's what I'm talking about. Aviva asks, who are the individuals stressing or striving to legalize adult childhood sexual relationships? There are people in this government. There was the now deceased What level of judge was she? I forget her name. She passed last year, I believe. Somebody should remember her name. She was a high court judge.
Goldberg.
What was her name?
Goldberg.
Ginsburg. Yeah. She was pushing that heavy.
Supreme Court judge.
Supreme Court, that's right. Thank you. She was a Supreme Court judge, one of 9, right? They had to replace her. And she was advocating very heavily for the legalization of 12-year-olds and 11-year-olds to be able to have sexual intercourse with adults. Not to mention, and I have to say this, that there's a particular religion, I can't blame it on the religion, there's a particular school of thought amongst the Jewish thinkers in religion. This is not to be attributed to most Jews at all. This is a very small cadre of people who call themselves Jews. I'll put it like that, because if they were practicing Judaism proper with all of its mandates and ethical concerns, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But there's a small group amongst the Jewish community, and they operate in secret on the most part, who advocate for this same level of depravity. And in fact, unfortunately, one of the practices that are conducted by rabbis when their babies are born, if the baby is male, then there's a certain group of rabbis that will circumcise that baby by cutting off its foreskin of the penis and then actually sucking the blood off of the baby's sexual area. I know that's hard for some people to hear, but these are the facts. Now, let me tell you, they're not getting that from the Torah proper. They're getting that from the subsidiary information provided by what's called the Talmud, the Talmud. You want to know what that is so you'll understand it? It's their equivalent of what we call our hadiths. And I'm telling you, these so-called Muslim scholars are just 2 minutes away from suggesting that same level of depravity for Muslims. They began this thing by lying to the Muslim public through the hadiths to say that Muhammad the Prophet married a 6-year-old. Married Aisha when she was 6 or 7 or maybe 9, the oldest. So they've placed this idea of pedophilia into our, you understand, into our minds by suggesting that the man that we love, the man that we admire, the hero amongst Muslims, Muhammad the Prophet, he married a 6-year-old. Can you imagine the permission slip that was just slipped into the brain of men? And I'm telling you, there are Muslims right now in most of the Muslim world who have no problem taking youngsters, 10 years old, girls, 8 years old, and having them as what we would call concubines, or they call them right-hand possessions. They don't even have to marry them or nothing. They can just take them, support them, give them money, have their way with them, and send them on their way. In the Western part of the world, those are called the tricks, holes, whores, and prostitutes. But they're doing that with our 8-year-olds in some parts of the Muslim world, believing, and that's their justification, well, the Prophet, we can do what the Prophet did. He married a 6-year-old, 9-year-old Aisha, you know, so we can marry a 10-year-old Boquisha. And believe me when I tell you, in the United States, they come to our community for these things. They do. They come from these other countries, won't name them, and they come to the African American community. They set up shops. They set up smoke shops where they sell dope. They sell reefer paper. They sell beer and liquor like you've never seen prior to them taking over stores in our neighborhoods. And the Qur'an is playing in the background in the store. And them dudes out there chopping it up and cursing and slapping each other in the back of the neck, serving you what's supposed to be halal meat. And we in there just shucking and jiving and grinning because we think they know the religion. So whatever they get away with, we think we have a right to get away with it. And they're the ones who are taking your African-American daughters and granddaughters in the back of the store and doing God knows what to those young girls for money while the Qur'an is playing. I've been in stores like that. I said, well, where did she disappear to? And believe me, back in the day, in the 80s, in Harlem, under the leadership of Imam Ali Rashid and others, even Imam Siraj in Brooklyn, we shut a lot of those places down. My older brother, may Allah bless him for all of his efforts, he was one to just go and kick in the dope den door. He'd kick in, you know, the drug dens back when they were shooting up mescaline and heroin and all that. My brother, he would just go in and he would take immigrant Muslims with him. He said, I want you to see something. And he kicked the door in and everybody's in there just like, oh, man. Yeah. You know what my brother would say? He'd say, Assalamu alaikum. And do you know that 90% of those people would give him the greetings back? I'm talking about African Americans. Alaikum salam, alaikum assalam. Because these are people who were Muslims, former Muslims, fell off the Muslim trail. And now here they are upon hard times. My brother said, you want to talk to the Muslims? Because that's what the immigrants talk. Yeah, brother, I like to talk to the Muslims. Take me to see the Muslims. This was during Ramadan when they like to do what they call tabliging, right? Yeah. They told my brother, they called the wrong one that night. They said, take us to the Muslims. We have to do the tabligh. They think that they're supposed to come teach those who are already Muslims, who have taken Shahada and all that, who are doing well and learning there. They think they're supposed to tabligh us. My brother said, not tonight. You want to see where the Muslims are? Bam! He kicked in the door and he says, Assalamu alaikum. Everybody said, alaikum salam. He said, well, they're your Muslims. Speak to them. And those immigrants just started crying. They said, we had no idea. No idea. Astaghfirullah. That's right. You have no idea what we're going through, and that's why you're not qualified to lead us. So that's all I'm going to say on that issue. I hope most of you, if not all of you, heard the interview we did earlier on Imam Mikhail Sahir's Words Make People program. If you heard that interview, you know that it was a classic.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you don't know who Khalil Islam and Abdel Aziz Muhammad or Muhammad Abdel Aziz are in your history books, Muhammad Abdel Aziz is still alive. Khalil is deceased as of 2009. He and I were very good friends before he passed. And I have a book that I'm promoting. It's only $20, as you know. And it's called Institutionalizing Islam. Islam in quotation marks, because we're talking about Khalil Islam. But we're also, it's a one-on-one interview with him that I conducted with him in my backyard in the year 2000. And the more I read that book and realize what his life journey was from Pennsylvania, moved to Harlem at 6 years old, became very entrenched in the drug culture and the entertainment world. Bessie Smith, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, Duke Ellington, those were people he was with on the regular because he was supplying them their drugs. This was before he joined the Nation of Islam. So he went through that. He ran into some people who were in the Nation of Islam at Temple number 7, 116th Street and Lenox Avenue in New York. And that changed his life forever. So these are people who put down the dope needle, who put down the reefer, who put down the alcohol bottle, and they decided to be soldiers in Elijah Muhammad's proverbial army called the Nation of Islam, Fruit of Islam. And they put in work. But because they put in that level of work, they were the first ones that the police department and the feds were looking at when Malcolm was assassinated, because these boys put in work. For those people who were antagonistic towards the work of Elijah Muhammad, you was going to eventually see some of these brothers. So of course the police department said to themselves, well, these guys, they could have done it if they didn't. And who's going to care? All they want to know is, was anybody caught for this crime? Well, we're going to bring these brothers here. And that's with them knowing who did it. Now, keep in mind, they knew who did it, and they knew it wasn't these two guys, but they decided to arrest them anyway. And the Nation of Islam thought that it would just be an open and shut case, so they didn't even provide them with bona fide lawyers. They gave them public defendants. who bumbled and fumbled, and the judge just hated Muslims, and the whole thing was a farce.
Right.
And they made sure that they didn't have separate attorneys, that the same public defender who was not getting paid that much to do that work, that he was defending both Khalil and Abdelaziz. So whatever happened to one was going to happen to the other one. So I'm not going to tell you the rest of the story, but you need to call that or that number, my number, or the Cosmic Quran 1 and email me and say, how do I get a copy of that $20 book? The way he tells that story and the way he comes out at the end, practically unscathed personally, but lost a lot when it comes to the wife and the family and all the 22 years is a long. He came out to a whole new world of technology and everything else. He went in 1966. Man, came out in 1980, whatever, 1986, I think it was. 1987, I think he got out. That's a long time. So we make dua for his family. His book is closed, Khalil. We make a dua also for the family of Abdelaziz. They lost a lot all that time with their children and then their grandchildren. They come out and grandchildren don't even know who these people are. Grandchild is preteen, a teenager. So yeah, I heard you, Mom. And some of the families started to believe they did it. So they became estranged from some of them. So that journey was no joke. And it's a part of the legacy of our people. We love and loved the work that Malcolm Shabazz put in. And he should be properly called Malik Shabazz. But Imam Muhammad named the mosque Malcolm Shabazz for a reason. Malik Shabazz was actually a name that Malcolm was carrying even before he met Elijah Muhammad. A lot of people don't know that. He had cards that read Malik Shabazz. And that was before he met Elijah Muhammad. So Elijah Muhammad is not the one who gave him the name Shabazz. Elijah Muhammad gave him the X. He knew that he was wearing Shabazz, but evidently Elijah Muhammad didn't feel at that time that he qualified for that name, a very popular name in the nation, Shabazz. He named himself that. So we have to understand and get this history straight if we're going to teach it to our children and grandchildren. So he was definitely a hero amongst us, but he was a human hero, as all of the rest of them who made mistakes, made missteps, misjudgments, and was up against a tremendous level of adverse power, jealous people, accusatory fingers pointed at him every day, all day long. You're trying to take the messenger's place, brother? Is that what's going on here? So we need to salvage the good that was in his contribution to our people's development and to human development. This man is loved all over this planet. So none of us should be going around saying unworthy things about Malcolm Shabazz. If you don't have anything laudatory to say, you shouldn't say anything at all. And that's true for any person. If you don't have something good to say and it's not, you ain't trying to save nobody's life by saying something negative, then just be quiet. Hold your tongue. Allah calls it backbiting. And he says it's akin to eating the flesh of your dead brother. Ill. We don't want to do that. That's nasty. So stop doing that, or don't do that, or encourage others not to do that. That's how we're going to bring ourselves up as a community, following these small types of wisdom and advice that Allah has strewn all throughout the Qur'an. It's in all different places, from Al-Fatiha to An-Nas. These nuggets, I call them, of wisdom that we pass over as we read. So if Allah says don't do it, take that as hudan, or guidance, and utilize it. Find those areas of your life that are doing that, and either cut down on doing it or cut it out altogether, or discourage it in those people who you know are doing, because everybody knows somebody who's talking about somebody else. Yeah, you ain't human if you don't know people like that, right? Just talking about somebody. Hey, did you hear what about the brother? You know, I'm like, you calling me from where to tell me about who in what part of the world? I just thought you should know. Well, tell me something I should know about the person who, you know, who did something good. That never makes the front page. You know what I'm saying? But people are quick to get online and start talking about other people and what they ain't doing and who they ain't following and all of that foolishness. And if we're not careful, we can get caught up in it. So we just stay away from it and let it die a natural death.
Dr. Bilal,
Yes, ma'am.
I thought about this many times, and I think what one of the problems is that we don't truly understand fitra, because the human being is fitra. So when we talk about each other or when we don't study, then we're eliminating a big part of fitra that Allah told us, you know, was made in the most excellent form. And you were talking about the levels and different things, and we don't go deep enough. We need to, for all of your recordings and videos that you did on the Nation of Islam, Farad, Muhammad, we need to go over those. We need to go over those because you gave a lot of messages, and I'm saying this as an educator. Okay.
Yes.
I'm
Thank
doing
you.
it.
And I'll say, just as a tail end of what you just presented about the fitrah, I mentioned that there are two levels of the fitrah.
Yes.
One is form. What's the other one?
Function.
That's right, right? But there are also three aspects to the fitrah. So let me say this real quick and then we'll close out. Everything in creation has a beginning point, a middle point where it reaches its excellence or its climax, and then a petering out point where it experiences demise. That's what the world came to know as G-O-D. Generator, G. Operator, thank you, O. Dissolver, demolisher, choose your D. All of those D's represent the demolition work that needs to be done. And it happens for everything in the fitrah, including our physical bodies. We're generated as babies. We operate at our full capacity when we're in our teens and young adult and that kind of thing. And then we grow to be older or elders and the stuff starts to fail. It don't work as good as it used to. And then eventually all of it becomes dissipated or demolished and we're put back into the earth. Everything in creation goes through that threefold process, and it's all a part of the fitrah. So what we're calling God is not the source creator. It is these forces operating in the fitrah. So understanding that, let's not mistake the fitrah for being something that is totally on our side at all times. The fitrah has multiple personality issues. So the fitrah will be on your side when you're in your creative mode. It'll be on your side when you're trying to build up enough muscle and strength to accomplish a task. But when you begin to lose sight of your objective or your purpose, then the fitrah will send in elements that will demolish you if your negative side becomes more pronounced than your positive purpose. So when you lose sight of your purpose and you're showing very little concern for why you're even here, why did Allah even create me? Then Allah sends you to the recycle bin. And he says, we'll just start this life over again, or we'll start other people will be on that same track. And I'll double up on the portion of what I'm going to present them, because I handed this particular person a whole package of wonderful stuff. And they started to treat it like it was their personal property, you know, the knowledge I gave them, or the wisdom, or whatever, you know, the community life that I allowed to fall in love with them and them with the other. But then I started to treat this like this was my personal kingdom. So Allah says, okay, he missed the point. So I'm going to take him out. I'm going to bring in somebody else. And the person goes through the same thing. So the key in understanding this fitra process is to always maintain sight on the purpose. You have to keep the purpose in mind. And if you don't know what the purpose is, that's more of a reason to invest in the Qur'an on a daily basis and ask Allah to show you what your personal purpose is. And for as long as you do that, Allah will keep you in operating mode. In the Bible, it says that, I forget which prophet it's speaking to, someone can help me, but it says that a particular prophet made the sun stand still.
Joshua?
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Joshua. It says Joshua made the sun stand still. That's one of the things that's speaking to. He was, first of all, able to keep social logic in vogue. But on the personal level, he was able to keep himself as an operating force, alive and functioning in the world, which shows you that Allah actually gives you control, a particular level of control over your own development, your own height or heightened purpose. And then there comes a time when you just become tired, and Allah will allow you to dissipate. That's not a bad thing. People just become tired at teaching. Elijah Muhammad, I'm sure he got tired. He leaning on the podium in his last lecture like, yo, y'all doing the right thing. Don't think those white dresses, you know, the reason why you are being admired. He said, look at what's in the dress. Elijah Muhammad got tough in that last speech. And he said, stop calling the white man the devil. How about that one? 1974, February 26, 1974. He said, stop calling the white man the devil. He said, in fact, respect everybody, and everybody will respect you. This I mean from my heart. He said, don't think that you're so great now that God has promised you the kingdom. He said, wait until you get in. So he's telling you, after 44 straight years of his teaching, what he taught, that you weren't even in the kingdom yet. You need to pass this on to Minister Farrakhan and those folks. You're not in the kingdom yet. What's it going to take for you to be in the kingdom? He said, you have to practice the principles of Islam. Those are his words. Then W.D. Muhammad comes right behind him, advising us to practice the principles of Islam. And we call him a hypocrite. Not us, but you know, the people who do that. He turned against his father. For doing what? For doing what his father was advising the next one to do. So that's a whole nother story, and we'll get into that. We have plenty of stories to tell, plenty of stage presentations to draw, and to map out as scripts and all of that, and movies, mini movies and homemade movies. We have to get this information out any way we can.
Instructor Bilal, before we leave, can you explain briefly what is wrong with what Muslims been saying Allahu Akbar? So you said that that's not correct, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's not grammatically correct. Neither is it conceptually correct. And I think I mentioned it maybe before you joined us. I'm not sure. But I don't want to make a big deal out of it, because I don't want to upset anybody's role as a Muslim, as a person calling the adhan and such. I don't want to just willy-nilly interrupt anybody's role in that. That's something to be discussed in detail at another time. But suffice it to say that the phrase Allahu Akbar, as I said, is not in the Qur'an in that form. وَذَكْرُ Akbar is the only place, or one of the places, that Allah, pardon me, that the phrase Al-Akbar is mentioned is in the narrative of Ibrahim, when he's going through the stages of observation of the stars, and then he said, that's not my Rabb, that's not my Lord. And then he looked at the moon and he saw it, you know, wane, and he said, that's not my Lord. And then he saw the sun and he said, Wahad al Akbar, meaning, and this is the greater. See, so you can use that comparative phrase, al Akbar, when you're talking or measuring things against other created things, but you can't use it to measure Allah against created things. In that regard, in the same root that Kabir and Akbar come from, the Kabara root, we can only say that Allahul Kabir, and I read it for you earlier in an ayat, that Allah is Al-Kabir. We can't say Allah is Akbar, because Akbar is comparative. That means you have to stand Allah, so to speak, against something else that you're comparing him to and say, next to this, he's Akbar, he's greater than this. But as soon as you say he's greater than this, you've compared him to something, and Allah says that he has no comparison. He says that he is incomparable. So we can't even say that Allah is like a beautiful rising sun, or Allah is like a soothing breeze. People do that in poetry all the time. God is like the most soothing breeze on the ocean, you know. We can't, that's a beautiful thought, but that's not accurate. We cannot make comparisons with the source creator, with whatever it is that's on our minds. So I know what Imam Muhammad said. He said it means greater than anything that you can imagine, but that's the point. If you can imagine something besides Allah, that's shirk. There is nothing to compare Allah to, because he is Al-Kabir, and that's in the Qur'an. So say Allahul Kabiru. That's perfectly sanctioned in the Qur'an, but not Allahu Akbar. Allahi Akbar, or Allah. Actually, the possession is pointing towards the dhikr, but dhikrullahu Akbar is pointing towards the dhikr, pardon me, that the remembrance of Allah is being compared. Pardon me, the part that says Akbar is explaining the dhikr. It's the dhikr that is greater. But dhikrullah is the remembrance of Allah. But dhikrullah, that he right there is possessive. It means that Allah possesses the dhikr, the remembrance. That's his, that's for him. But it doesn't, the Akbar is pointing to the dhikr, not to Allah. So I hope that's clear.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like we change it from there's no God, only Allah, when they used to say there's no God but Allah. They changed
Yes.
but to only, similar to that, I guess, right?
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. So yeah, make that shift.
Thank you.
Dr. You're saying it'd be cool to say Allahu Ahad.
Yeah, that's in the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
Allahu Samad. That's in the Quran. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely. You can say all of that, but you can't say about Allah what Allah has not said about himself. And we'll go maybe next week into what I refer to as the social schemer's objective in putting these phrases in the forefront of our deen. It didn't happen incidentally or accidentally. It happened on purpose. On purpose. And the way you know that they are fabrications is because they always tie it back to an angel somewhere that you can't prove existed, didn't exist, said it, didn't say it. So they say that the adhan was something that a common Sahaba, companion of the Prophet, he had a dream and he heard these words in his ears. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, you know, hold that in. And then they say that they brought it to another person and he said, wow. He said, have you bounced that off of Rasul? You know, in our language now. Have you bounced that off of the Prophet, off of Nabi? No, well, call the Prophet, say it to the Prophet. Let's see what he said. They said it to the Prophet and he said, wow, these are the marvelous words here. Now let's see. Yeah, what about Bilal? They used to call him Black Bilal. And they used to call him Bilal the slave, according to their hadiths. Black Bilal, you know. Muhammad the Prophet reportedly called him Master Bilal. He took the word black aswad and he turned it into a different configuration that meant master. Sayyidina, Sayyidina Bilal, Sayyid Bilal. That means Master Bilal. You wasn't calling everybody else master. So the point is that we've reached a point where the introduction of these things began to slip into the deen by way of hadiths, fabricated hadiths. Would Muhammad the Prophet, with his sensitive ears, as they were to scripture, to revelation, nuances are in the Qur'an that only the Prophet could have accepted as the real deal revelation, because he knew how that language was being constructed in his nervous system. So if the Prophet heard Allahu Akbar as the first part of an adhan, and the Prophet knew that there was no such word as adhan in the Quran. There's udun, means ear. That's where the word adhan comes from. But there's nothing in the Quran that says call the adhan. The Quran says we have heard a caller calling to faith, but it doesn't say a muezzin. We're making these words up. So if Muhammad heard Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, his soul would have sensed that there's something not right in that configuration, because that's nowhere in the Quran. The Prophet, if the companions didn't pick it up, the Prophet would certainly have picked that up. So why would he say, yeah, that's nice. Where's our James Brown? Where's our Nat King Cole, our Smokey Robinson guy? Oh, there he goes, Bilal, call him. Tell him we want him to say that. And by the way, have him stand on top of the Kaaba. All of that is fabrication as far as I'm concerned. It has symbolic meanings in the same way that mystics and secret society people like Masons and Shriners have narrations of things, Haram, Abith, and all of those stories, but they're all symbolic. For us, they made it literal so that we began thinking that Bilal was missioned. Something as significant as that, and Bilal's name is not even mentioned in the Quran. Something as significant as what they say happened with Muhammad and Abu Bakr in the cave, hiding from the enemies and having a spider's web drawn over the mouth of the cave. Something that's significant that we repeat to our children and grandchildren all the time. But the names, Abu Bakr, those prominent people, Uthman, Ali, none of these 4 stars that they call caliphs now, caliphs, none of their names are mentioned in the Quran, but a nobody such as Zayd, the slave, his name is mentioned in the Quran. What's Allah trying to teach us? Those big boys that you keep saying, oh, the four, the mighty 4, right? Yeah, their version of the 4 tops, I guess, right? Their names are not mentioned in the Quran. Jibreel is mentioned in the Quran, but he's never called angel. So we got a lot of reconfiguring to do. It says Jibreel, but it never says he's a malaik. It says the angels and Jibreel, but it never says that Jibreel was a malaik. It says he was a product of the Ruh. So we got a long ways to go. Just stick with us, stay with us. Follow what it is we're doing. Go on YouTube, type in Imam Benjamin Bilal if you haven't done so, and look at all of the other presentations that we have from this Nunetic point of view, and share it, like it, subscribe. That builds up the algorithm so that many more people who would not normally have received a notice about these lectures, they're going to receive it the more you make comments and share and like those videos. Just do it as a habit. Whenever something new is out, I have about 2 or 3 new things out now. Go there, and if you don't even look at the hour's worth or the 2 hours worth of whatever's there, just share it, like it, and subscribe. Hit the whatever they say, the like button or whatever, you know, the bell or whatever it is they're asking you. I hate that symbolism, but that's all we have to work with for now. Thank you. All right, so we're going to close out. Okay, all of us.
One question. So the Prophet Muhammad didn't make or lead prayer after the fairy tale of the azan.
What we're calling prayer should not be translated as prayer. The word as-salat should not be translated as the prayer. The word for prayer is dua.
Dua.
And there are no synonyms in the Qur'an. So when Allah says a dua, that's one thing. That's petitioning God's ear, so to speak, if you want to use that language. But when he says iqamatu salah wa ita'i zakah, as-salat and az-zakat are not speaking about prayer and charity like we've been taught. Those ideas are much more refined than that, and we're going to be going over that in the next few weeks, inshallah. I have to creep up on that subject because of people's sensitivities.
We've been waiting for that a long time.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to create any people who use what I'm saying as the excuse to be lazy. Yeah, they'll use what I'm saying as the excuse to not do something they didn't want to do anyway.
You're right, right.
Well, hey, what's a cat mean? I ain't got to get, well, no,
Yeah, I was just trying to dissipate that picture that we have come up with, that the azan was called, people came, and Prophet Muhammad led the people in dua.
Yeah, and what I'm saying to you is that when we get finished painting the picture of what all of that represents, what you're going to realize is that you're in for a lot more work.
Okay.
But the work is pertaining to your personal development, and you can do it at home with nobody around you.
Oh, I know that. But
so follow what I'm saying now. Follow what I'm saying. So we're not divesting you of your responsibility. And also there's a part of that practice, if you will, that does include other people who believe or who have accepted faith like you have accepted faith. And we are mandated to find those people and to be with those people and to share our experiences with those people, and also to meditate and to do other activities that should result in the heightening of those energies that we keep speaking about inside of ourselves. So no, it's not just you. That would be ridiculous. It's people who are in proximity to other people. And if you understand what this practice is, then you make times during the week, during the weekend, during the evening, during the very early morning, at those petitioning times that the Qur'an outlines for us. And we not only do these things individually, but if we're in close proximity, then we find a way once, twice, 3 times a week to do them together, because it heightens the experience and we're able to then share those experiences with each other. And that's what's going to do the job of helping to, as I call it, graduate the soul. You see the word soul and solar, they're kissing cousins. So it's not prayer. If I pray with you, that's one thing. If I start praying on you, that's a problem, right? So we don't want to keep using that language if we don't have to.
Right.
So we just say petition. We petition. Yeah, we petition.
So that we don't pass it on. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that said, boy, I thank all of you for staying with me. And we're going to conclude tonight. And I'm going to ask Michael Hameen to join us again, our senior instructor. He does such a wonderful job opening up. And all of you actually do a great job closing, but I particularly enjoy his because he always mentions the sick, the deceased. And now we can make also a special dua for our brother who is still living. That's Abdel Aziz Muhammad, or Muhammad Abdel Aziz, and his family, the family members of Khalil Islam, and all those who fought and struggled to establish a platform upon which all of us, the younger ones, were able to stand upon and advance upon, regardless of what they did or did not do, or the good and the bad and the in-between that they did. Doesn't matter if they weren't here, if they didn't make their contribution, as this beautiful sister in front of me, Beverly, has done and is continuing to do. You guys have already been there, done that, and you got the t-shirt to prove it. It's us younger ones and the ones younger than me. I'm 62 now. The ones younger than me bringing up the rear who have to now perform. And you guys should just be able to sit back and enjoy the ride. And that's a fact. So Michael, if you will.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbana afriq alayna sabran wa tawafana muslimin. Our Lord, pour out on us mercy, sabr, patience, constancy, and raise us up to the completion of our covenant with you, of true human being, Muslim. O Allah, Rabb of all the systems of knowledge, we ask you to bless those of our pioneers, our seniors, bless the excellence of their contribution towards raising fallen humanity, towards the establishment of a system of social justice, a system of social awareness and activity, a better life, a better community. Oh Allah, bless our young ones to be able to connect with our seniors, to know the way that we have traveled, and so that they will be able to clearly make their contribution in service to your will and plan for your world and your people. Oh Allah, we ask you to remember the sick, the shut-in, those who are infirm. We ask you to help and assist them. We ask you to remember those that you've taken back to your system, from which we come, that from which we belong to you, and that we're ever returning. We ask you to remember the soldiers, men and women who made great sacrifices in your name and for your will and plan and your world. Ameen.
The beautiful thing about that dua that Michael makes often, that I want you to understand about the Qur'an, being that the Qur'an is fitra-based wisdom, that means that everything in the Qur'an is going to be related to one or more of the four basic elements in the fitra. And we can include the fifth, which is the ether. Everything you read and everywhere that you read it in the Quran, you should start attempting to make the mental connection between what Allah is saying and which of those possible elements are being spoken to. He said, "O Allah," or "O our Rabb, pour out on us mercy." That means rahmah is a water content. So it should be doing the same thing, performing in the same way that liquids or water performs. If it can be poured out, then it's a liquid or it's water. So I want you to now think about mercy in the same way that you think about the benefits of water. You see how that goes? So you're going to find either water being spoken to, air being spoken to, fire separates, being spoken to, be ye not divided, right? Hold on to the rope of Allah and be ye not divided. Fire divides things. And land, the ground, growth. He created you to grow like plants grow. So these four elements are everywhere, not in some places, everywhere you read in the Quran. That's an exercise for you Nunetics learners. Read, concentrate. What element would this word be speaking to? And before you know it, you're going to have notebooks full of wisdom from your own soul. And that's going to be a beautiful day for you. As I greet you in the greetings of peace that obligate each and every one of us to keep the peace. Salamun alaikum. Thank you.
Alaikum salam.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Oh,
Alaikum
all
salam.
right.
My brothers, my sisters.
Thank you, man.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you.
Man, it's great to see all
Love
of
you,
you.
brother.
Alhamdulillah. That
Love
love
you
is
all.
reciprocated.
Assalamu
It's
alaikum wa
reciprocated.
rahmatullah.
Thank you so much.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay. Be well.
Yes.
You too. Everyone.
All right.
Alhamdulillah.
You as well.
All right. Peace to all. This will be ready. I will send you this as a replay as soon as it's ready, either later tonight, hopefully, or tomorrow, first thing in the morning, inshallah. All right. Peace.